Booze and boards, boards and booze. Bad guys at large, it's bad news. No beer this time, so we won't lose. We found their lair, they'll pay their dues. The town is saved, so now we booze. Booze and boards, boards and booze. With Mickey and Jeb.
Alright, here we are. We are back with today's episode of Space Base, not to be confused with Space Dandy, which is awful.
He speaks the truth.
This is why we don't record anything that Jeb buys.
Wow.
Did I say that out loud?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
And everybody heard it too.
Oh no.
Okay. So actually, Gary introduced us to this game,
That's
right?
true. Gary, the guy behind the scenes that you guys never see.
Yeah. Who plays a lot of games with us.
Exactly. Anyways, this is actually his copy of the game. He was like, we should try this. If you're familiar with Machi Koro or Valeria Card Kingdoms, that type of game, you're going to see a similar game in this. We have, let's see, it's a AEG game. We have 60 minutes average playing time for 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up. You can probably lower that age, in my opinion. Basically, it's like I said, if you played the other games and stuff before, it's a card drafting, engine building type of system with a little bit of like an Imperial Settlers kind of mechanic in part of it.
Yep.
Anyways,
John D. Clare, I think, is the designer. Because
Okay,
his name's above the...
Because his name's above. We
It's
just
above
randomly
the
put
title.
somebody's name up there.
Yeah.
I hope so. But I don't have too much to say about it until review time, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah, me neither.
So that gives you a basic look at it. It has gotten, in my opinion, there's a fair amount of noise about it out now, especially with people that are familiar with. I mean, the big one is Machi Koro. I think it started the whole...
That's the first one that I played that was like that.
type of game, which we haven't reviewed, but both of us have played numerous times, which is a whole nother discussion. Maybe we'll do some comparisons during the review or whatever. So anyways, we're going to jump right into components and then gameplay and our normal spiel, and then we will have a 3-player game with Jeb, Gary, and I playing Space Base. So we'll be back in a second with components. Okay, so we're back with components, and this will be super fast, as you can see, but we're going to let you know what all these things are. So obviously it's in the rule book if you need to re-reference after we get into setup, but it'll be pretty straightforward.
Alright, so the first thing is the command console, the player board.
So each player is going to get one of these. That's as simple as it gets.
Yep. There's slots for the cards on it.
Yep. You're going to have starting cards.
Yep. And there are credit, income, and victory point tracks at the bottom.
So that this track here with the yellow, that is, we'll call it a gold coin, even though it's probably not. That's your income, and right? No, that's not your income. Yes,
credit.
That's your credit, and then
the planet's the income.
And then the rocket is the victory points.
Yep.
Okay.
Next up are the player's starting ships, which there are 5 sets of them in 5 different colors.
So you have green, yellow, blue, purple, and red. And we'll just tell you right now that the color makes absolutely no difference in this game, because as soon as you flip the cards over, they all look the same. So basically they did this just so it's very easy to separate. That's the only reason for the colors. Even the boards don't have a color. They all look exactly the same.
Next up are the ships that are level 1, 2, and 3.
So each of these piles has the ships that you'll be drafting throughout the game, and they'll all have their own row to buy from. So this is going to be row 1, this is going to be row 2, and this is going to be row 3. They increase in cost and power throughout the game, or throughout the level, sorry.
Then there are the colony cards.
Colony cards are basically going to be a static pile where you can buy from, and we'll explain more when we get into gameplay explanation. But they all look the same. They just have varying victory point values at the bottom of the card.
I know it doesn't really matter, but can you flip them over so you
Yeah,
can see
sure.
what the back
So
looks?
the back.
That just as though they know the
Let
difference.
me take it off the board so it's clear.
Yeah.
So.
All right, and then the last card that we have is the starting player card.
Player, and I don't even know that we used this at all, but there is one.
All right, and next up are the cubes that come with the game. So there are charge cubes, which...
Charge cubes are white, and they get used on certain cards throughout the game.
Yep. Then the credit cube.
The credit cube is yellow, which is gonna go here.
And then the income cube,
which is green. And if you're wondering about what the heck's the difference between income and credit, you'll understand when we explain it.
and the victory point
The
cube.
victory point is blue. And so each person is going to have one of those on the board to start the game.
And the very last thing, which is pretty...
Essential?
Yeah, you need it, are the 2d6s that
Yep,
come...
2d6. The one side is the rocket. The opposite side is the 6, just in case you're wondering. So they did put a fancy little picture instead of the pip for the one side.
And that's everything for components.
It is.
Alright, so we're back for setup. The first thing you're going to do is give each player the following: a command console, which we have set up there,
Yes.
one set of the 12 starting chips, so each player will just take...
So again, those were the colored backs that we showed you during the component. They all have the same front. They all have the same fronts. There's no different than the way people start. And they're numbered 1 through 12, so you literally are going to put them on their appropriate slot.
After all the players take the starting cards and place them there, each player is going to get one of... Is that yellow that I
No,
gave you?
you gave me white.
Alright. You're going to get a yellow, a green, and a blue cube, and you're going to place the blue and green on the 0 space, and the yellow on the 5 space.
Yeah, which I can't reach, so Jeb can.
That's
take
all
that
me,
over.
huh?
Yeah.
So 5, 0, 0.
Obviously, if you haven't figured it out, we're only setting up one player because there's no point in setting everybody up. So you guys can see setup is be silly.
Alright, after that you're going to take the 12 colony cards and place them face up in ascending order.
All right. So again, the colony cards are that back, and they're the ones that every single one of them has a victory point value at the bottom of the card, which are these. Okay. So the most important thing is remember the back, and these are all out of order, I think. So at the top of your play area, you're just gonna. Can you see that, sir?
Yeah, just like the bottom 3/4 of it. Yeah, you're good.
So that's a 2. That's 3.
And Mickey's looking at the
4.
number in the top right, which represents the position on the board that they would take up.
Okay, so it doesn't matter how you arrange them as long as they're in order.
Right.
But like, so you can snake around if you need to. We're just showing you a generic setup here.
All right. The next step is to create the shipyard. What you're going to do is separate the 3 decks based on their backs. So the 1, the 2, and the 3. You are going to shuffle them and place them face down on the table.
They have been shuffled.
Alright, then you're going to draw the top 6 cards from each deck and lay them face up on the table to create the shipyard. And we're probably going to have to move this.
Alright, so the colonies are going to get wiped out for a second so you can see the rest of this. And then flip over 6. Right?
Yeah, but your 3 deck is upside
I
down.
know.
It's
I know,
hilarious.
Jeb.
Alright, so that's what the shipyard will look like. Then you're going to place the charge cubes in a pool that will be available to all the players. So
basically have a pool of the white ones off to the side or in the bag or in the tray or whatever. You just need them throughout the game.
Yep. All right. And then for determining starting player, there's actually some more steps to this than just picking a player. So it says to make sure that everybody's at 5 credits, which we are.
Yep.
Then each player is going to do the following. They're going to draw 1 random card from the level 1 deck.
Yep.
Then you'll lose credits equal to the cost. So let's Mickey pretend that he's doing this.
Okay, so I'm going to draw a card, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to look at the cost. The cost is the credit symbol up in the top left, and this says 3. So if that was my player board, I move it down 3. And this instantly goes to my field as like an upgrade. We'll get into this more, but basically what's going to happen is this will flip upside down. How do I know that? Because there's a 12 there, and that's my 12 card, and then this replaces it.
Yep.
And each player is going to do that.
The player who drew the card with the highest sector number is the starting player. So Mickey actually has sector 12, so he's probably going to be the one to go first. And they take the starting player card. If there's a tie, there's a tiebreaker rule. Finally, each player is going to gain additional resources according to their turn order position. So starting player doesn't get anything, but second player gains 1 credit, third player gets 2 credits, fourth and fifth gain a... What are the planets called? I forgot the word.
What?
This,
Oh, the economy thing?
yeah.
Income, I think they call it in this game.
And then the players are now ready to begin the game, starting with the starting player. So
Okay.
that would be done for all the players.
Right. The only thing that's different if you didn't catch it would have been refer to the rule book and go around and see, after everybody's done this, see what additional thing you get for turn order, because that is kind of a big deal, because on your first turn, if you didn't go first, you get a little extra something.
Yep. And that's everything for setup.
Alright, so how do you play this thing, Jeb?
I don't know.
Excellent.
Alright, so the game begins with the starting player, and they're going to take their turn. After they take their turn, it goes clockwise around the table, and play just continues until the end of the game is triggered.
How do you win the game, Jeb?
Have the most victory points. Alright, so things you can do on your turn, or the things that you are supposed to do on your turn. When you're the active player, you're going to do this. You're going to roll the dice. Then based on the roll and the cards on the player boards, all players will gain 0 or more various rewards. So
in this game, the way that works is I can look at the 6 card, which I look at the blue things. On my turn, the blue...
Blue is for your turn. Red up here is on somebody else's turn.
Okay, so it's my turn. I roll the dice and I look at 6. I get 1 credit.
No.
2.
That's 6.
Oh,
but it's still 1 credit.
1 credit. I put into the wrong one, sorry. That's why I have Jeb here. And this one's 1 credit. Or I can put both of them together and look at the 8. The 8 spot is actually 3 credits. So, if you didn't catch that, the way that it works is I can have the 6 and 2, whatever they provide, or I can have whatever the combined, or I can have whatever the sum of the dice number is. So again, I can have the 6, the 2, or I can have the 8. So obviously I should take the 8, because the 8 provides 3 credits. If I did it separately, I would only get 2.
So you're up to 5.
So I slide my credits up.
Yep. And then the next thing is the active player is going to buy a card, or they can choose not to.
Right, so basically I look at how many credits I have, and I have 5 right now. So I can buy anything that's got 5 or lower amount. So if you notice, like, I can't afford anything in this row, but I can in this row. So I would buy something. I would probably buy this 11. Well, I might buy this too. I don't know. Planets or... So let's just say I bought the 8. Okay?
So how much did that cost?
That cost 2.
So
I lose it all. Alright, and we're going to get back to that in just a second. I take the 8 that's in the 8 spot. I put the new card down, and I flip that over to the red side. Important things to remember. So what... Well, this gets... For the card that I bought gets replaced immediately. Important thing to note is, if you didn't catch it, when I bought the card, Jeb slid the credits all the way back to wherever the green cube is, which, what's it called again? Economy? No.
income.
Income. Okay? So it doesn't, even if that card had cost 1, even though I had 5 credits, I spend it all. Okay? It's a different concept than a lot of other things. That's why the green cube is kind of important, because what happens is, let's say I was able to earn 5, Jeb, and my green cube was on 5. Okay, so my income, or whatever,
Let's say Mickey had 9
Right.
for his turn.
and then I bought a 9 card, it only slides back to as far as the green is. So essentially, I always start my turn with 5 credits, which is, if you're doing the math in your head, it really helps you to get into these higher rows if you have something to start with before you start gaining. Of course, if you had an incredible economy engine, maybe you wouldn't need it, but it's still very, very helpful. It also makes it so, unless you've got other types of powers, you're pretty much only getting one card a turn. Alright? The other thing that happens, which we didn't explain, is we went over everything that happens for me on my turn. So I had rolled a 2 and a 6, if you remember. What everybody else does, they do the exact same thing, except they're looking above those numbers for red cards, or the red part of the cards. So
pretty much other players are just going to ignore their entire board and only look at the red cards that are placed underneath above it.
right, and they do the calculation exactly the same. They can have the red 6, they can have the red and the red 2, or they can have a combined and take the 8. So if this was Jeb's turn and he rolled the 8, I would, because I don't have anything on the 6 and the 2, but I would still get 2 credits to be able to use on my turn.
On your next turn. Because
on my next turn. I just said it, if you had rolled this on your turn.
I'm just saying.
You're just clarifying, Jeb?
Clarifying.
Okay, thanks. Alright, so anyways, hopefully that makes sense, and if it doesn't, just watch a teeny bit of the game, because it's basically, if it's clicking with you, these are all going to start, well, not necessarily, but most likely, these are all going to start to change, and then on other players' turn, you're almost always getting something, because of the way that the rolls work out.
For an example, say Mickey buys this 12 card, he would replace this, and when he puts this up here, it now means that he gets both of the red reward cards.
Yep.
So it's not like the whatever's up here gets trashed. It's just going to keep compiling.
Right. So they get better and better and better the more that you put up here. Where the decisions get hard is that when you replace it, did you really want to lose whatever that blue spot is? Because sometimes the trade-off is like, ooh, do I really want to do that?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but that's my best. It's my best option. Let's see how it pays off. All right. So I guess the last thing to talk about, which we're not going to go over every single thing, is that in general, that the symbols on the card. So you already know about the yellow, that gains you a credit. if you see a planet with a number in it, that's how far your green moves up the track. So if I rolled an 11, I could move the green up 1 spot. And same with the rockets. Whatever number's inside the rocket would be how many times I can move the victory points up on my track.
And if you look at like this card, for example, it has credits and the planet to move up. So if you rolled that and it was your current ship, you'd get both of those.
Yeah. So a couple other things to note, and we're not going to go over every single ability in the game, but it's important to note that some of the cards have these little squares. Okay, these are the charge squares for the cubes. Okay, and there's some sort of power. All right, and the power is represented by a little dot, a white dot here. So in order to use this, you have to have a cube.
Yeah, so for example, just real quick, that's the 1 spot, right?
Yep.
So if this was the active card and Mickey rolls a 1,
I can now charge it.
He would put 1 cube there. And then now on his turn, he can spin that cube to use the ability. Right?
Actually, I can spend it anytime I want. That's in that particular case.
Oh, green is the
because I can. That particular card lets me change to this card type of thing. Anyways, like I said, we're not going to get into all the powers. Just note that that's how you store a cube. Note on that card too that there's cube storage in the red section.
So if it was upside down and I rolled a 1 and this is Mickey's card, he would place a cube there.
Right, and that one needs 2 cubes to be able to use it.
Right, and that actually has a link between the 2 cubes. You won't be able to see it, but there's like a little chain in between them. So you would need both of them to be able to use the ability.
So that's just an example. There's a ton of different, so like there's an ability.
The one next to the 2
this has an ability down here. Which one?
Next to the 2 deck. Yep.
This one.
That one requires 2 or 3 depending on the number of players, right?
I believe so. Yeah. And so there's a lot of neat things that go on, and again, there's enough of them that we can't get into every single thing. If none of that made sense, watch 10 minutes of the game, or watch the whole game. It doesn't take that long to play, and it's pretty wild, and you'll get to hear about what some of these additional powers do. But in a nutshell, that's how the game works.
Yeah, the only other couple things that we need to talk about are colony cards.
Yep.
If you buy a colony card, you can just grab whichever one you want.
So we have a choice there.
So say Mickey buys he spends 24 credits to buy the 6 spot one. He would take his 6 spot, put this upside down, and then this is now
colonized.
Yep, so he gains 8 victory points. And now whenever he rolls a 6 on his turn, he doesn't get anything.
Do I still get the 6 on the other people's turns?
So the key with colony cards, once you buy them, you're not allowed to replace them. So it is stuck there, and you can still get the red reward on opponent's turns.
Right. So you got to be very careful when you decide to make it. Well, it's not totally dead, but you have to like, do I have enough red up here that on other people's turns it's still going to be good for me that I'm willing to, because that's expensive, but it is 8 victory points. So I know we weren't real clear about the win condition in this game.
Yeah, that was the next thing.
It was. Do you want to talk about it?
So for in the game is when a player reaches at least 40 victory points. So once that triggers, everybody's going to finish playing the current round. So whoever triggers it, you have until it gets back to the first player, and the first player doesn't get another turn. It's at the end of the round.
Right. So if the last player in the round
triggers it,
they win.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like everybody gets the same amount of turns. Yep. If that didn't make sense.
And then the winner is the person with the most victory points.
Yep.
If there is a tie, however, everybody plays one more full round.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
And then after that, it's whoever has the most victory points is the winner.
Yep.
So I think that's everything for gameplay. Like Mickey said, just check out our gameplay video if you want to see like have the flow of the game and everything. And there's just way too many different ships to go through everything. So if you have questions, the rulebook actually does go through a lot of the cards and what the abilities
Oh,
mean.
and the abilities are actually, they're very, very tiny, but like when you have the card in your hand, it's not that bad to read. It gives you the general of what the ability does, and then like Jeb said, the rule book's relatively clear on how the different stuff works, but we'd just be rambling and it would go in one ear out the other if we tried to describe everything that you did. But you saw what every single component does, because like the only other component rather than just the card symbols is these charge tokens, and that's what we were referring to with all the different powers. These charge tokens make your power abilities go off. So again, just look through the cards if you don't understand what it is or when you can do it, and you'll be fine.
Yep. All right, so we'll be back with a 3-player game of Space Base.